So I'm getting asked a similar question more and more frequently, and it's a result of what's going on in the news and the state of the economy, announcements by companies like Walmart laying off hundreds of employees as they are projecting a tough time ahead, and some losses projected on their forecast for Q3, Q4 earnings reports. And the emails and questions that I'm getting often, because I actually get these questions too from friends and family, but you guys have been emailing, and I'm trying to get back to you guys as quickly as I can, as fast as possible to get you some answers. But again, oftentimes the answers end up in these videos. So if this is one of the questions you asked me, here's the answer. But the question is, how do I get prepared? And most often it's, I don't even have enough money to prepare. So basically it's, how do I prep with no money? And that's a really, really interesting scenario to be in, but it has led me to a question for all of you. And that is now the time to sell everything? Just let it all go. Because honestly, right now, you may still have some potential buyers out there willing to spend money and before things get really bad, which, really bad is probably going to be a few weeks, couple months, but definitely I'd say by the holiday season, we're going to be to that point of no return. And at that time, it's going to be too late and nobody's going to be really interested in spending money, I don't think, on non-essentials. But should you sell everything? The inflation is taking off. It looks like it can't be stopped. The Fed, Jerome Powell, they keep raising rates, and it's really having no effect on inflation whatsoever. Maybe a little bit in the housing market, but then even then that depends on the city, mostly the city that you're looking for real estate in. So I don't really see a ton of positive response from the markets in the economy to try to curb this inflation and slow this down and allow people the opportunity to get into a position to just like live comfortably, But I think it's going to be tougher and harder for more very soon as more businesses analyze their losses. It's not even going to be profits and losses. It's going to be losses. As the businesses analyze their losses and continue to cut their headcount and lower their overhead and operating costs and their expenses, forcing many people to not have jobs, forcing many people to not earn enough money to even fill up their gas tank to go to work. And the question would be, well, the first thing that would come to mind would be sell everything. Sell everything that you don't need and try to build up some form of stockpile of reserve, savings, cash, emergency fund. And if you don't have a 1 week reserve emergency fund, then you need to really get on it. You really got to hustle, okay? If you have a 1 month, not bad, okay? But in my opinion, for as tough as things are going to be, as harsh and as cold as this winter is going to be, I would say 6 to 12 month emergency fund. Because even if you had a month, even if you had 1 month, think about it. If you had 1 month, that's great. It's cool, a little bit. But the odds that, let's just say you lose your job and you're able to find a replacement income within 30 days is going to be pretty tough. Because I think once the axe starts falling, it's going to fall for many. And there's not going to be other open positions somewhere else to replace the job you lost. And with that being said, let's just say you could, but it takes time to transition to, maybe now is the time to start putting in some applications and sending out resumes to build up a backlog of potential employment candidates. because it's still going to take time. Like if you lost your job tomorrow, well, you would probably, get hit the ground running on Monday, and then it's going to take time for that to turn around, interviews and responses and this, that, and the other. And then you got to think if they, the employer that you're considering even catches wind that you're somewhat desperate and just really in need, they're probably going to try to take advantage of you, and that's just not going to be a good situation. But let's just say you could lose your job tomorrow, you can get a new one on Monday, maybe a week after, maybe. That 30-day safety that you've got, it's going to diminish faster because of inflation. So I would say 6 to 12 months is probably going to be a sweet spot for many. And an easy way to do it probably would be to consider selling everything you have that you don't need. And, somebody asked me, they said, well, how long have you been preparing? And I was like, honestly, I've been preparing probably since I was 17. I think I like 16 or 17 years old. I think 16 or 17 years old, I remember I went to purchase my second motorcycle. And, my mom was not very happy about that one. But I went to go purchase my second motorcycle. And the person I was buying it from, they were in Georgia. It was in Loganville. And he gave me directions to his house. And he said, hey, go down 78 and then hang a right on whatever road it was. I can't remember. And then when you get to this street, hang a left. And then I'll see you when you get here. I was like, when I get to the street, hang a left. You'll see me he goes, no, you'll know when you get here. I had no idea what he was talking about. Well, either way, I followed the directions. And after I hung a left on that street, I went down the street was like his driveway, but it had a street name. It's crazy. And this was probably back in like the early 2000s. So like he was balling. He was balling. So I go down his driveway, which was a street, and it was probably like a half a mile long. Across the bridge, over a creek and everything. And I come out of this clearing, and there's a 8-car garage with all the doors open, the lights on. I could see the motorcycle I wanted to buy was in there. He had another motorcycle in there. He had a NSX in there. He had, he had all sorts of stuff in there. And then this big old house. This house is probably 15,000 square feet. Massive. And the reason why I'm saying that this story is because this was like a pivotal point in my life where I was always like hustling as a kid growing up. But I think at that point is when I flipped the switch and I really started preparing, because I bought the bike. But then I asked a guy, and it was a Honda CBR 600RR. And it was red. I ended up putting a Two Brothers pipe on it. And I love that bike. But I remember after buying it from him, before I left, I said, hey, man, and I think this is a key component to preparing, which I believe a lot of you guys are doing for the simple fact that you watch these videos. But you got to ask questions, okay? You got to ask questions. And you can't be afraid to ask questions, because what I've learned is that if you're not afraid to ask questions, you might actually get a good answer. And it's amazing how many people are willing to share information with you if you just ask. So I asked the guy, I said, hey, man, what is going on? How do I get here? And he goes, I'll tell you. And he goes, we should sit down and have coffee. I'll tell you. I don't know who this guy is. I never met him before besides just to buy this bike. He doesn't know me, but he's like, yeah, we'll meet up and we'll have coffee. I'm like, okay. So a week goes by, and we scheduled a time to meet to have coffee. I brought my brother with me, my older brother with me, because I always looked up to him and knew that he had more financial knowledge and, also a second set of eyes and ears for the conversation to possibly pick up something that I may miss. And, to share this knowledge with him too, because we were always on the same ground. We were always on the same hustle. So we sit down with this guy, and he tells us, he goes, honestly, the secret for him was construction. And ultimately, I ended up getting into construction in high school for several years, and then just recently got out because I was tired of it. But he gave me some valuable information on what it really takes to 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 earn high levels of income and build wealth and grow a business and things like that. But at the end of the day, it was like I felt like at that point in time I was preparing because I saw someone who had it and he told me how he got it, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna do the same thing, which is kind of what we do here. We watch these videos from other prepper channels like Canadian Prepper or Patrick Humphrey or Southern Prepper One or Alaska Prepper. Now that he's back, and you take the information and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do the same thing and I'm gonna get ready. I'm gonna get prepared. But no lie, for me, my preparation was around the finance component. So making sure I had the money available to prep, which brings me back to the question that I get often, which is, how do I prep with no money? And I hate to say it, emails are actually coming in now, a little bit of, speaking of Southern Prepper One, a little bit of boots on the ground intel of people at companies that are facing termination or layoffs and or have already experienced it. And some of them are actually for Walmart. And they said, they're Walmart, and they said, hey, I'm on the list. Some of them are coming in from these railroad companies like CSX, BNSF, Union Pacific, not laid off, but very fearful of what's going to happen that isn't necessarily in their control as a result of the unions and their negotiations and the strikes and the point systems that they have to abide by. I think that's called high-vis points for the railroads. So the questions are coming in, and it's like, hey, how quickly can I prepare? And I'm looking at it like, well, I've been preparing for like 20 years. So, I'm not saying you need 20 years, but it's like the sooner you start, the better. But at the same time, if I were to look back on the past 20 years, knowing what I know now, could I have done it faster? So that's why I'm bringing you guys this information. And maybe you can take what I've been through and my experiences and use it to your advantage to do it faster. But I honestly think that with what information is being shared with us, especially around companies like, let's just use Walmart, for example, who's already announced layoffs. Let's use Robinhood, who's announced layoffs. Google and their hiring freezes. Amazon, almost 100,000 laid off. They're coming. More people are going to lose their jobs. Unemployment benefits are probably not going to be what they once were. And don't expect any stimulus checks, to bail you out. There's a few states that are offering some money. I put it in another video, but I don't think it's going to be enough to really make a dent in what's going to happen and what's going on. And, if they're telling us now what's going on, and they're telling us that, hey, things don't look good, we don't have a good feeling about the future forecast, we're going to lay off this many people, then we all have to know and all have to realize and understand that that is a small portion of how bad it really is if they're actually telling us that. See what I'm saying? So I thought it would be very important for me to share this information with you guys right now, because if you're not prepared, then time is running out. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll eat my words and everything will be fine, and I'll be perfectly okay with that, because that means a lot of people aren't going to have to suffer. But if I'm right, and this trend that we're on continues in the direction that it's been on, as this country continues to try to build back better. Anyway, hey, gas prices are down a little bit. They're down from where they were. They were high, and then they came back down. They're still higher than they were before, but they're down. So, light at the end of the tunnel, rainbow, pot of gold, end of the rainbow, or something like that. Pat yourself on the back there, Joe. But honestly, if it continues to go the direction that we've seen and that we're anticipating, and that the economists are saying, like even Jamie Dimon with J.P. Morgan Chase is, expecting a crash, housing market potential crash, crypto is already falling apart. Like that is a dumpster fire, and everything. So, and look, this doesn't mean for you to run out and take all your cash out of the bank. This doesn't mean for you to invest in cash or anything like that. Do what you want. If you feel comfortable with cash, cool. If you feel comfortable with crypto, if you feel comfortable with gold or silver or whatever you want to use, that's fine. All I'm saying is that I think that now is probably, a great time that if you know you're not ready, if you know that, your income could be cut tomorrow, if, you know that you could potentially be on the chopping block and be laid off or anything like that, reduction of hours or whatever, I'd say get to it. Question is, sell everything. I don't know if it's that drastic. I don't know your particular situation, where you are or where you're trying to be, but the when you want to make money, selling as high as you can is the goal. And with inflation up and demand high and supply low, if you have anything of value, now would be a great time to list it and sell it and try to get the most out of it that you can, and then take that money and take whatever you get from it and hang on to it. And hang on to it because it's going to be a bumpy ride. And you don't want to lose that. You want to have that available to you just in case. Just in case. Yeah, sure. The dollar is losing value. Inflation is reducing your buying power. But the dollar still functions, and it's going to be better than nothing. But like I said, use whatever you want for purchasing power. But if you're in a situation where you're asking, how do I prep now? How fast can I prep? How quickly can I get prepared? And I have no money. Well, then you need to do something to get money, plain and simple. And, a good way of doing it could be just to sell some things. Jump on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Let Go, Nextdoor, Etsy. Somebody asked yesterday if Amazon FBA was a great idea. It all depends on your situation. And these are conversations that we can have. The links are in the description if you want to contact me and really discuss it. Because if you're saying, hey, look, I already got 6 to 12 months and emergency fund backup savings or whatever. I got my pantry full. I've stockpiled. I'm prepped. But I am still interested in expanding and making sure that my family is safe and prepared. Then we can talk about these business ventures and these business opportunities and things like Amazon FBA and other affiliate operations and side hustles and passive income streams that can further protect you and your family in the event of a job loss, a layoff, a termination, hours cut. You're a business owner and your business goes under, or your clientele backs out, or you become you're non-essential, not a necessity, and people cut back on it. I remember somebody commented that they were in, I believe it was in a boat washing business or yacht washing business, I think down here in Florida. And it's like, well, if things get really bad, then some people may look at that as that luxury as not as essential as it once was. And yeah, sure, these are $100, $200, $300, $400,000 or more boats and yachts, but they're not using them as much. Maybe they took them out of the water, and now that business doesn't really have a market anymore because they've pulled back. And I've seen it with landscapers. Landscapers come to me and say, my business is cut back because people, one, they're at home. Two, they're watching their money. So they're at home, they have time and availability to cut their own grass, and they're watching their money, so they cut back on the expense of a landscaper. People cut back. They cut back on Netflix. There was multiple reasons why people cut back on Netflix, but at the end of the day, it was an added expense that they were able to cut. And that's the other thing. It's like part of you positioning yourself and your family to be in a position to be prepared in case SHTF would be to adjust your budget so that every dollar that you have, every dollar that you can use to survive is going towards that and not towards stuff you don't need. But like I said, these are things that we can discuss further if you guys want. Links in the description. Just, click them and you can get directly to me. No, I'm not contacting you in the comments with a WhatsApp number. That's not me. And You know, I want to make sure that everybody who's watching and paying attention is doing the best that they can, and is not going to be blindsided by any of this nonsense that's going to be rolling out here soon, and realizing that what you see in the news and what you see in the headlines, it does seem grim, it does seem bad, but you got to realize that that's only a part of it. And if they were to give you the whole story, we would have mass chaos and mass panic, and nobody wants that. So take it for what it's worth, grain of salt, my 2 cents or whatever. But I want you guys to be prepared. Oh, and if you haven't seen it, or you haven't gotten a response back from Michelle about the video she put up about getting a divorce, you might want to go check that one out.